Hello everyone, I hope you're keeping well. Welcome to Existential Delight, welcome to this video, to this live stream. My name is Dylan and I'm going to be with you for however long this stream is. And you might be wondering what I'm wearing. That's probably a good place to start. First of all, I should say that if I can't dress up on my own channel, then really where can I dress up, right? So this is my show after all, so I might as well dress the part. So I recently have been getting really into medieval history, and I've been reading a lot about it, and I've been exploring it. And I really love the whole aesthetic of the Middle Ages, at least what we have passed down to us from the very specific areas of history that we do. And funny enough, I actually recently got into a hobby that I never thought I would get into, which is hand sewing. Sewing garments by hand. So my first project was actually this bard's hat, which is my first project. So you can see it's pretty rough here on the edges, but I'm learning and I'm actually having a lot of fun doing it. My next project is actually to hand sew a veil for my wife that she can wear to mass. She already enjoys veiling at mass, so I thought it would be nice just to make her a veil. I'm trying to keep it a secret, but she's probably going to watch this stream at some point and she's going to find out. So anyway, that's why I'm wearing what I'm wearing. And I think somebody asked in the last stream, why am I wearing a capelet? Well, it's really just because I like it. I think it looks cool and I enjoy it. So tonight I'm going to be talking about a topic that has been on my mind for the past, I think, 2 weeks. I've been mulling it over, thinking about it, making some notes. And that is the topic of love generally, but more specifically, this modern phrase or this modern idea that love is blind. This is not going to be as long a stream as my previous one. My previous stream, I spoke about my conversion to Catholicism. I think that was almost 3 hours or almost 2 hours, something along there. This, I doubt, will be that long. I really just want to touch on a few points with you, share some ideas with you. I'm going to pull up some text on the screen just now, and I'm going to read through it with you and hopefully learn with you, right? I'm always open to changing my mind, but I'm going to share some thoughts with you that I found helpful, that I think you'll find helpful too in your own personal life. So let's begin. I'm going to take you through three kind of areas of thought. The first is going to be a television show excuse me, a Netflix show which is quite popular called Love is Blind, which I have watched with my wife. And then I'm going to talk about Slavoj Zizek, the philosopher, and his take on love as an encounter, something that you encounter. I'll explore that a little bit. And then I'm going to talk about G.K. Chesterton and his idea that love is in fact not blind, but that it's bound. And I'm going to explore that idea with you. I'm going to pull up the text where he talks about it. I'm going to read through it with you, and I'm going to explain those ideas to you as I understand them. So let's begin with the first area of thought, which is this popular Netflix show, Love is Blind. Now, if you've never seen the show, I'll give you a very brief idea of what it's about. Effectively, the show is marketed as an experience where single people are basically put into these little pods, and they can't see the person they're speaking to on the other side of the pod. So it's a kind of speed dating experiment where the one aspect that's cut out is the visual aspect, hence the name Love is Blind. So these couples don't know what the person who the person they're speaking to, who they really, or what they really look like, I should say. And so the idea is that before you get to see that person, you have to propose, right? So you have to get to know each other in what they call this little pod, where you're just speaking, and the couples are alternating, right? So I don't know what the schedule's like, but in one instance, they're talking to one person, then they talk to the next person, then they talk to the next person, and they've all got little notebooks, and they're writing down things about these different people they're speaking to. And then the idea is that if you feel a certain amount of love for this person on the other side, you propose to them, having never seen them before. After you propose, if the other person says yes, you then get to meet the other person. These two people meet each other for the first time and they see each other for the first time. Once a certain amount of couples have successfully done this, because normally they begin with a lot of people and then it kind of distills itself down, those couples are then all put together in the same house, which of course is going to lead to a lot of drama, because during the dating, some people develop love triangles where two people like this one person, but one of them ends up choosing a different person, but now they see the person in person, they see the person in the flesh, they see their face, they see their body, and this just leads to a lot of drama and tension, which is why so many people are captivated by this TV show. Okay, so that's the basic idea. Eventually, the couples meet each other's parents, and then eventually they actually end up at a wedding, which is all created for the show. The families are invited. Of course, the families, not everybody's happy with this arrangement, not everybody's happy with this quote-unquote experiment, and then very often the heat of the season, or the point of the show, is that moment where they're actually on the altar, and the person that's marrying them, the person who's officiating, will actually ask them, I think they have to, in accordance with the show, now we're going to find out if love is truly blind. And then these couples then have to either say, I do, or no, I'm not into. And a surprising amount of people say, no, I'm not going to do this. Actually, I don't feel comfortable with this arrangement going forward, which I think is interesting. Okay, so I'm telling you about this show because I want to just point out a few things to you. I don't think that the question, are looks more important or is personality important, which is a question we hear a lot, right? Which one's more important, looks or personality? Now, my immediate response, and it's probably yours, is that personality is obviously more important because looks will eventually fade. However, I think that the question is wrong in itself, because we are not just bodies with souls, and we're not just souls with bodies. We are in fact body-soul composites. So the way I view the show is it's almost very Gnostic in the beginning, where, the body's kind of bad. We don't want to view the body. I just want to get to know you, the kind of essence of who you are, and I don't need to actually see you, and that will determine a successful relationship, because historically I've based things on looks, and that's been a problem. And that's a kind of matter is bad. We shouldn't think about the physical appearance. It should all be about what's on the inside, right? And there's something to be said of that, but it is one end of the extreme. The other end of the extreme might be, looks actually are everything. In fact, your personality doesn't matter at all. I just want somebody for their good looks. And that end of the extreme, I think, is also incorrect, and I think most people would agree. Of course, the personality comes in, and so this is why I say I think that this idea of what's more important, looks or personality. I think the question, in a way, is already approaching the question in the wrong way. Really, and this might sound contrary to what you've heard, but I actually think that both are important. I do think that a person is not just when we talk about looks, we don't just mean attractiveness. We mean everything that goes into a person's body, including their facial expressions, their mannerisms, their body language. All of these things communicate things about the person. And even most people would agree that your body language will unconsciously communicate intentions, the way you think about things to other people without you even opening your mouth. So your body is also a form of communication, which is completely cut off in the initial stages of this dating show. Okay, so that's the first point. And the great irony of the show is that once people actually see each other, the whole dynamic of the relationships shift. As much as they maybe don't want to admit this, the moment couples physically see each other, it's a very special moment, and it's kind of an acknowledgement that actually there is an element of sight that we can't ignore, that absolutely the way a person presents themselves, like I mentioned, their body language, their mannerisms, and just their physical appearance does play a factor in the way we feel about other people. Okay, and I think the irony of the show is that it's really trying to push this idea that love is blind, but immediately early on you see that the physical appearance plays a massive impact. Now let me add an additional point to this. I don't think love is blind, but I do think infatuation can exhibit blind tendencies. So, if someone's infatuated with another person, it's almost this combination of optimism, wishful thinking, and just a hint of lust. I'm completely obsessed with this person to the point of effectively worshipping them. I'm infatuated. There's nothing they can do in my eyes that is wrong. Everything they do is right. And that is, in a way, a form of blindness. But we don't want to confuse infatuation with love. Now, if you read what St. Paul says in the New Testament, it's a very famous verse. Obviously, love is patient, love is kind, etc. But one thing Paul does not say is he does not say love is blind. All right? He doesn't actually make that claim. He doesn't describe love as something that is blind. So this is the first point, or the first area of thought I just wanted to bring to your attention. Let's now talk about Zizek. So Slavoj Zizek, I believe he's Slovenian, the philosopher. I have a video of him on my channel where he talks about love. It's a synthwave reading where he's basically speaking, and I've synchronized what he's saying to music. And in that video, in the original video, he talks about love as an encounter. He talks about this spontaneous meeting in the street where you bump into somebody, and in a totally unpredictable way, your entire life changes. You meet this person, you think, oh my goodness, this is the love of my life. Or you've known someone for many years, and then you suddenly have this encounter where you realize, oh my goodness, this is the love of my life. And Zizek makes an interesting point that in the modern world, we want sweet without the sugar, so we have sweetener. We want we want something, but we don't want the fall that comes with it. So we want love, but we don't want the act of falling in love. We don't want this totally contingent encounter that literally sweeps us off our feet. And so, historically, you might have had old, wise uncles and aunts or parents who were arranging your marriages for you. Zizek says, in a way, we're doing a very similar thing, except instead of all of those old, wise aunts and uncles, you have dating agencies, you've got apps on your cell phone that are curating partners for you to select from. Now, you do have more choice than if the relationship was completely arranged, granted. But there is an element in what Zizek is saying that I think is true. There's a fear of this random encounter, and so people find that they want to curate their love life, and so that removes this fall element. Now, maybe somebody struggles to speak to people in the public sphere, and meeting people virtually online is a way for them to actually get to know somebody. And I think that there's some merit to that. But the point still stands that it's effectively love without the fall. It's an agreement. It's an acknowledgement that I like this person for whatever reason. Their description of themselves, their bio, and their images appeal to me, which again goes against this idea that love is blind. And then they swipe, and then they initiate communication. And it's all very controlled in a way. And the other person has a lot of freedom to say whether they're going to actually meet up with this person in the real world or not. So there's this desire to have love without the fall. There's this desire to have love without an encounter, and love almost becomes like this commodity. Okay, so that's Zizek. Now let's talk about Chesterton, and this is really the heart of the video. I'm busy, and I have been busy for a few months now, mapping out the ideas in Chesterton's orthodoxy. I'm currently on chapter 5, which is the flag of the world. And while I was mapping out the ideas, I came across this short paragraph in the chapter that I remember reading it and thinking, man, this is a whole conversation on its own. And here we are. This is that small piece that he wrote. This is that whole conversation. So I need to give you some context around what he's saying. But before I do, let me read it once. I'll then provide you with context about what he's saying, and then I'll explore the actual text we're going to look at line by line. So on your screen, you should see Orthodoxy by G.K. Chesterton. I'm going to slide over here to the side so that I'm still somewhat in the video. Let me just adjust my microphone very quickly. Okay, so I've just taken out this portion from the text, and in keeping with the medieval theme and what I'm wearing, I've maintained the font to be somewhat medieval. Okay, so this is the piece. I'll read it first and then we'll talk about it. So and remember, this is out of context, so I'm going to give you context right after I've read it, but I think it's best if we just read it once. So Chesterton says, and this is everything on the screen right now, that's all I'm talking about, this little piece that he writes. He says, perhaps the most everyday instance of this point is in the case of women, and their strange and strong loyalty. Some stupid people stated the idea that because women obviously back up their own people through everything, therefore women are blind and do not see anything. The people that are saying this, can hardly have known any woman. The same women who are ready to defend their men through thick and thin are, in their personal intercourse with the man, almost morbidly lucid about the thinness of his excuses or the thickness of his head. A man's friend likes him but leaves him as he is. His wife loves him and is always trying to turn him into somebody else. Women who are utter mystics in their creed are utter cynics in their criticism. Thackeray expressed this well when he made Pendennis's mother, who worshipped her son as a god, yet assumed that he would go wrong as a man. She underrated his virtue, though she overrated his value. The devotee is entirely free to criticize. The fanatic can safely be a skeptic. Love is not blind. That is the last thing that it is. Love is bound, and the more it is bound, the less it is blind. Okay, so I really wanted to explore this with you. So let me give you a little bit of context about what Chesterton is saying here, because I'm going to speak for a few minutes. I'm just going to come back to the center here. So this whole chapter, and just think about the title of the chapter, The Flag of the World. I'm not going to explore the whole chapter now. That video is coming, don't worry. It's the one I've been working on for a few months, mapping out all the ideas. But I'll give you a rough overview. So just think about the name, the flag of the world, right? So you have a flag of a country, which symbolizes the unity of the country and gives rise to various forms of patriotism. Not the flag itself, but the flag is a symbol of that. And in this way, Chesterton's talking about the flag of the world. He's talking about this allegiance we have to the world. And he's talking about the attitude we should have to the world. And right at the very beginning of this chapter, Chesterton famously talks about optimism and pessimism. And he talks about these kind of modern ideas that you should be optimistic or you should be pessimistic. And Chesterton really doesn't like this framing of the situation, because he says really what we want to be is not optimistic or pessimistic, but it's rather a form of patriotism. And Chesterton says that you have an allegiance to this world. Again, remember the title, The Flag of the World. You have an allegiance to this world before you get to decide whether you're going to feel optimistic about it or pessimistic about it. And if the world is broken, and you're pessimistic, well, you don't really love the thing that you're criticizing. Underneath your criticisms, there's a lack of love. You're pessimistic about the state of the world, and so it's never going to get better. So you might think optimism is the solution, but Chesterton says, actually, if you're just optimistic about things, things are probably not going to improve. They're probably not going to get better. So Chesterton says that the optimist is somebody that thinks that everything is right, except the pessimist. The optimist's only problem is the pessimist. But the pessimist is somebody that thinks that everything is wrong except himself. So everything is wrong except me. I'm the one good about this world. He says, an optimist saying that everything is right, you might as well say, well, everything is left. It's just as meaningless. So what does he say? Well, he says that suppose you live in a small town and you love it. Right? You're not optimistic about it. You're not pessimistic about it. You just love that town. You love its history. You love its people. You love your little piece of land that you've been given. And effectively, if the town is broken or if the town is damaged, this is not a reason to stop loving it. This is a reason to love it more. And this is that kind of patriotism idea that Chesterton is bringing in. If things around you are broken, that's more reason to love it. That's more reason to love it. And it's almost heretical. It's almost taboo these days to praise the country you're from, right? It's strange for me to talk to people and to say, you know what, I actually love South Africa. I'm not optimistic about it. I'm not pessimistic about it. I'm patriotic about it. I love the country. And I have an admiration and a loyalty before I get to choose what kind of optimist or pessimist I want to be about the situation. I'm already on the side of the country. Now, Chesterton says we need to take this to our view of the world. So your view of the world and your view of humanity should be viewed through this lens, because we adjudicate and judge reality as if we're coming from some other reality into this one. So we'll look at the world and say, well, we have very beautiful mountains, and that's a reason to be optimistic, but we also have bacteria that kills innocent people, and that's a reason to be pessimistic. And we're making these judgments as if we're coming from a neutral space, but we're thrown into this world. I think Chesterton says something like, you've already fought for the flag, you've already been enlisted in the army of the world before you have even a choice about your attitude about it. You're already in the thick of it. So the fundamental principle that should be motivating you is love. Now, love towards the world, this kind of cosmic, this kind of major patriotism, not just patriotism on the local countrywide level, but cosmic patriotism towards the world, that is closer to the optimist, whereas the pessimist would be the kind of cosmic anti-patriot. So if you have to be one, it's better to be optimistic and wrong than be pessimistic and right. But overall, you don't necessarily want to look at things through this lens of optimism and pessimism. And Chesterton makes a lot of wonderful arguments about this, a lot more than I'm going into here. But like I keep saying, I will go into them when I explore that video. Why am I telling you this? Why am I telling this about optimism and pessimism? Well, Chesterton brings this idea into the passage we read just a moment ago. He leads up to this passage and he talks about love as on the cosmic level, on the level of creation, on the level of the country, on the level of the community, on the level of the family, on the level of one-to-one and level of individual, level of God. So there's all these levels at which cosmic patriotism, this love of the thing before choosing what kind of attitude you're going to have about it, that idea needs to take precedence. He then says that love is actually the thing that improves things. So merely being optimistic or pessimistic isn't good enough. You've got to really love something, because then you're going to make difficult choices to improve it because you really care about it. If you're just optimistic but you don't love it, if you're just optimistic but you don't really have skin in the game, or you don't really care about the effects, well, then it's likely that you're going to abandon it, or it's not going to get better. It's just going to stay stagnant in the way it is. So then Chesterton says, and here we come back to this passage, and I'm just putting it back on the screen for you guys. Chesterton then says, well, let me just get in here. Perhaps the most everyday instance of this point is the case of women. And I'm going to just break this idea down a little bit. So women have this strange and strong loyalty. And you can tell Chesterton was married, because I really think only a married guy could have written this. So let me explain. So women have this strange and strong loyalty. Some stupid people stated the idea that because women obviously back up their own people through everything, therefore women are blind and do not see anything. So this idea that because you have this kind of, again, this idea of patriotism, this love, this admiration and loyalty that comes before your attitude, because of that, because of the way women treat their families and those that they care about, Chesterton phrases it as women obviously back up their own people through everything. You might think, oh, well, they're just blind. They don't see that the family in this case, or this specific woman's family, for example, is not worth caring over. Why have this strong and this strange and this mysterious loyalty to this unit you have? He's saying, well, actually, the people that say that can't have known any woman. They can't know women, because that's not at all what women are like. They're the complete opposite of blind, as if they don't see anything in the specific context we're talking about. So then Chesterton says, and this is really the heart of the point, he says, the same women who are ready to defend their men through thick and thin are, in their personal intercourse with the man, almost morbidly lucid about the thinness of his excuses and the thickness of his head. See, if you've been in a relationship with a genuinely good woman, and she really cares about you and she really loves you, she's not just going to be optimistic about you, and she's not going to be pessimistic about you. She has a loyalty and an admiration for you that's deeper than those proposed means of approach. She has a much deeper loyalty. And so she's going to stick with you through thick and thin. Very famous lines, right? So that's his first point. The same woman that's going to stick with you through thick and thin, because she loves you, she's going to point out the thinness of your excuses. And she's going to point out the thickness of your skull, of your head, right? So she's going to point out to you when you're being stubborn, when you're not being the man you should be. And she's also going to point out to you when you're the same idea, not being the man you should be, but providing petty, silly excuses. And it's not because she's being optimistic or pessimistic, it's because she loves you, because she cares about you. She can see clearly because of her love. She's the opposite of blind because of her love. Because she cares about you, she doesn't want you to make weak, thin, terrible excuses about the situation you're in. She wants you to take responsibility, because ultimately she knows that's what's going to make you the man you need to be. And also she doesn't want you to be overly stubborn and thick-skulled and difficult and a constant struggle to live with and to be with. So she's also going to point out when your head is thick. And that's what you want. You don't want somebody that tells you you're right when you think you're right. If you're wrong, you want somebody that's going to tell you you're wrong. But that doesn't come from anger or hatred. That actually comes from love, because it's truth and it's honesty and it's all those good things. So let's continue this. Chesterton then adds, a man's friend likes him but leaves him as he is. His wife loves him and is always trying to turn him into somebody else. And it's, some guys might read that and think, oh my goodness, why a woman always trying to change me? But if you're going with her and you realize that her mission is to help you be the best man you can be, if you've got someone with any sense, right, then that's going to help her ultimately. It's going to benefit her if you're a great man, and it's going to benefit you because you've got a wife who loves and respects you. You don't just want love, you want respect. But you're not going to get there if your excuses are thin and your skull is thick. Okay, so that's the next point she adds on. So this desire to change into somebody else isn't because there's something wrong with you. It's because you're not everything you could be. And because she loves you, she can see that more clearly than anybody else. This is already feeding into this idea that love is not blind. Then Chesterton says, I really love this line. He says, women who are utter mystics in their creed are utter cynics in their criticism. So there's this creed. You can think about, I will be with you through thick and thin. I love you. I have an admiration and a loyalty to you that will never change. Their creed, in this very kind of limited definition of creed, is women are complete mystics. There's an almost loss of rationalism because they just love you so much. Your wife, she loves you so much that she's a complete mystic in the way she approaches the relationship. It might not always feel like that, but there's this mysticism beneath it. But then Chesterton says, along with being mystics in their creed, they're complete cynics in their criticism. Because they're going to point out to you the things about yourself that are just not good enough, there's going to be a real cynicism that can come through, right? And this might obviously go too far. It might obviously go too far, but there's of course extremes on the spectrum, and then there's a healthy balance in the middle of mysticism towards the love and also cynicism towards the ways that you are currently ruining the relationship and making things worse. Okay, then Chesterton says Thackeray expressed this well when he made Pendennis's mother, who worshipped her son as a god. So there you get that idea of mysticism, this kind of loyalty and admiration, worshipping the son as a god, yet assume that he would go wrong as a man, right? So it's not like women are naive. They know that men are fallen, right? And they know that men are going to make mistakes just as they will, just because we're all fallen. And so there's an acknowledgement that I'm going to be a mystic towards seeing what you could become, and I'm going to be a mystic towards helping you reach that ideal. But at the same time, I know you're going to go wrong as a man. And so there are going to be times where I'm going to have to be a bit of a cynic, and I'm going to have to be honest with you, because if the whole world is lying to you, I need to be the one that tells you the truth. And you want that if you want a healthy relationship, and it should go both ways. It should go both ways. Good. Then Chesterton says, the woman underrates his virtue, though she overrates his value. Right? So, again, worshipped as a god, but understanding that he's fallen as a man. The devotee, and here still on this idea of the woman towards the person she loves, she's a devotee towards this person she loves. She is free to criticize. Why? Chesterton says, because she's a devotee, because she is devoted to you, she's free to criticize you. It's like if you have a really, really good friend, which is similar, just different kind of relationship, really good friend, he's free to criticize you because your friendship can withstand it. Okay, now how much more is that going to be true of somebody you've committed your life to? Then, Chesterton says, the fanatic can safely be a skeptic. The fanatic, through love, can safely be skeptical about the problems you have, because at the bed of it, you know there is a foundation of love. And here we come to the last line, which is really the point of this video, where Chesterton says, and he concludes, love is not blind. In fact, it's the last thing that love is. Love is bound, and the more bound it is, the less it is blind. Love is bound to the thing that it loves. In the case of cosmic patriotism towards the world, in the case of a relationship, bound to the other person, and the more it is bound, the deeper that relationship, the deeper that love, the more free, open, and honest the communication is going to be. And so the less blind it is. Infatuation is blind, but real love, true love, honest love is patient and caring and kind and all the rest, but it's not blind. And this is the point I wanted to share with all of you in this short stream today. I'm still here. Let me know in the chat, what do you think? What do you think of that? What do you think of that idea? Do you think Chesterton's onto something? Do you have any questions? Let me know in the chat. I'm going to go through the chat in just a moment and see if you guys have sent anything. It's so interesting that this idea that love is blind has kind of caught on. It's almost become a thing people say without thinking. I mean, your experience might have been different, right? Maybe people just kind of say it without really meaning it. It's possible. But I do think there's this idea that love should be completely blind. But it's just not in the nature of love to be blind. Think of love itself, God. Love itself, God sees everything. If love is blind and God is love and God sees all, past, present, and future, definitionally, is that a word? By definition, love cannot be blind. So, I think Chesterton's right on. I think this is something interesting to think about, and it's just a short video I wanted to share with you guys. So, just having a look at the chat. Thanks, Keenan, for the compliment. I'm glad you like the hat. Peggy says yes. Peggy agrees. And Father John, hi Father John, so glad that you're here. He says, as always, Chesterton's right on. Yeah, Chesterton is, I want to say always, but he's, as usual, he's spot on here. Spot on. Anyway, guys, I took you through 3 areas of thought. Love is blind. I talked a little bit about the TV show Love is Blind. I then talked about Zizek's discussion about love as an encounter, or desire to remove the fall from love, to remove the contingency from love, the kind of randomness from the encounter of love. And then I just shared this little passage of Chesterton. So I'm actually going to be going into this whole chapter. If you liked what I did now, where I kind of just explained this little verse, I'm going to do this with the whole chapter, line by line. So please subscribe if you want to see more content like that. If you're new to the channel and you want to see content like this where I'm just talking about videos. This is the podcast. Sometimes I'm alone. Sometimes I speak with a guest. Recently I had a great conversation with David Patrick Harry from Church of the Eternal Logos. It was round 2. It's the second time speaking, so I'm going to be uploading that fairly soon, probably in this next week. And then I've got a lot more content coming up, a plethora of live streams coming for you guys, because these live streams are quite fun. I like to do them. Thank you very much for being here. God bless you. If you want to support the channel, please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. Please like this video. If you haven't liked the video yet, please like this video. It does help with the algorithm, so I'm told. And I appreciate you guys. God bless you. You can follow me on Instagram at Existential Deli. You can also find me on YouTube, and this podcast is also available on Spotify. So this episode will likely be uploaded tomorrow. You'll find it on Spotify, along with all the other episodes of the podcast and many other videos on my YouTube channel. My name is Dylan. This has been Existential Delight. Thank you for being here. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.